Steve's in Nottingham, and you're through to Sir Mark Rowley. Go ahead, Steve. Morning, sir.
Oh, good morning, Sir Mark. Thanks for taking my call.
Hi, Steve.
Hi. My question is, does he think the public should have been better informed about what the authorities already knew following the horrific attack in Southport?
Sir Mark.
Thanks, Steve. It's horrific, isn't it, the attack, and listening to the sort of remarks at sentencing and the experiences of the families and the victims is moving for all of us, and none of us can quite imagine what it's like to be in their situation. We have very strict contempt of court laws in the UK. As policing, we would always start from the principle we'd like to have as much information out as possible. But we work with CPS, they're officers of the court, and we have to make sure we don't undermine a trial.
Well, the Chief Constable of Merseyside Police, Serena Kennedy, who I imagine you probably know, you may know
She's excellent.
well.
She's really excellent.
OK, I'm glad you get that said, and I quote, "Since day one, we've wanted to say much more to show we're being open, but we've been advised throughout that we couldn't by the CPS, the Crown Prosecution Service." How wise was that advice?
So it's, excuse me, so it's frustrating, but it is the law. So we shouldn't criticise CPS for insisting on the law. Now, there are countries where contempt of court laws are nowhere near this and you're able to talk more freely. But in our legal system, if the police or CPS had said loads more, there is a risk it would have undermined the trial. And that's so I can understand that situation. I can understand that advice. The Prime Minister's talked about doing reviews. I know the Law Commissioner looking at the law of contempt of court. I think in today's modern social media age where rumour goes so quickly, it's good that people are looking at it, but I think it's harsh to criticise people for working to the law as it is.
Yes, but Merseyside Police say they wanted to give more details, particularly to local people, about his religion, his crimes, a terrorist document and a batch of ricin that were found at his home. In the past, indeed in the Met area, possibly not on your watch, we have been informed. I'm reminded of the so-called Parsons Green bomb. We were informed quite a lot about the background there. This is totally different. I know it's not your decision, but it doesn't seem right, Commissioner.
So I'm not going to sort of telescope myself.
How would that prejudice a trial here when it didn't with the Parsons Green bomber?
I'm not going to telescope myself into the individual decision-making of people on this case. I completely share sort of Serena Kennedy's sentiment. I think it's good there's going to be a review of a whole range of things around this, and it's good that people are looking at the law on contempt of court. I think it'd be great if we can have changes that mean that more information can be shared earlier, because I think today's social media world generates rumour and debate and sometimes contention. So I think we do need changes.
So we'll move on in a minute. Was it an act of terrorism?
Not on the law as it is today, no. And I think that's what sort of police decided, CPS decided. The judge didn't have a different view.
Although the Prime Minister says terrorism has changed. I'm sure you heard his speech 2 or 3 days ago. Was he right?
So the threats that we face have changed. I think the challenge that this review will need to look at is there are thousands of young men online who are obsessing about violence. They are bouncing between videos of school shootings, other sort of gruesome acts, some of it by terrorist groups, some of it nothing at all to do with terrorist groups. And it's the obsession with violence which is driving some young men to do horrific matters. At the moment, the law doesn't see an obsession with violence as terrorism because it's not based on an ideology. It's a different factor. But I think the point to make in this case is this case got all the resources it needed. It got all the specialist support.
Yes.
It didn't affect the investigation. I wonder if some of this debate leads the public to think if it had been declared terrorism, something different would have happened in the investigation. The investigation was done very professionally and very successfully.
Let's get back to the calls. Thank you, Steve. Shrivan is in Hemel Hempstead. Go ahead, Shrivan. Morning.
Good morning,
Hello,
Nick, and good morning to the Commissioner.
Good morning.
Good morning, sir. My question is, in light of what has happened, is prevent the purpose?
Can I just check, is prevent fit for purpose? Is that what you said, sir?
Yes.
Okay, the line's a bit bumpy, so I might let you go, but do listen to the answer. Commissioner, is prevent fit for purpose?
The Commissioner's announced. Sorry, the Commissioner. I'm not commissioner.
Maybe in a future life.
The Prime
Hold
Minister
you for policing just now. Politics around the corner.
The Prime Minister has announced a review of the support for people like this. You see that he was looked at by Prevent, referred into the local council, social services, lots of agencies, mental health agencies. I think lots of people looked at him. And weren't able to get their hands around him. Clearly, that.
But how frustrating is that for you?
Oh, it's awful.
Because
it's not for me, about the families.
Give me 1 second. You, not you personally. The police cop the blame, right? It's much like the man who stabbed 3 people in Reading, who was referred to Prevent 4 times. People moan about the police. It is our other agencies, really, who have the questions to answer, that your men and women have to race into dance classes and take knives off people.
Completely. Police are always in the front line of these issues, and therefore that sort of some of the assumed responsibility lands on them, which isn't entirely accurate. The Prevent programme.
Prevent has failed.
The Prevent programme was.
Mark, say it.
The Prevent programme does lots of good work. It clearly, the Prevent officers didn't feel this was a case for them, and it was better dealt with by others.
Why won't you say the word failed?
The system has failed. I mean, somewhere in the system between Prevent, local authorities, mental health, all of those systems, we failed to get our hands around. The system failed to get its hands around him, and we all wish it had managed to do that.
Of course.
We're never going to stop every young violent man, but we need to be as good as possible at it. And there are too many young men online obsessing about this violence material, and some of that's about how we intervene with individuals, some of that's about how, the rules for online material and what people can digest and watch, and that's part of the challenge.
Well, as you mentioned this, I want to, and hopefully you've been made aware, my colleagues at LBC have done an extraordinary amount of background and research into this, and within just 20 minutes they've discovered, and I believe I'm committing a crime by even having this material, so I'm going to pass it to you quite soon. They managed to find manuals how to make homemade pistols, how to make a grenade launcher, how to make ricin, how to wire car bombs, how to carry out truck attacks, and it is believed some of this material was possibly used by the Southport murderer. Young minds are exposed to all this harmful content online, from appalling violence to sites which are encouraged to commit self-harm. How worried are you by the breadth of material online, and do you think you have enough laws to clamp down on it?
When I was out of policing for a few years before this job, Nick, I did a report for government at the time alongside Dame Sarah Khan on the law about extremism, and we titled it Operating with Impunity. And the material that's out there that is legal is deeply disturbing.
You can access illegal material as well, Mark.
You can access illegal material, but so
what do online? What do they need to do?
But a lot of this material that you've probably got there, I'm not seeing it, but a lot of it will be legal. That's even more concerning, because at least with illegal material, you can put pressure on the companies to remove it. If it's legal, it's much harder to say to the company, it might be legal, but please take it down because it's unsavoury.
My understanding is a bit of both in here.
I would imagine there would be, and so that's a deep concern. And the law online is changing the whole time. There was a recent Online Safety Act. It didn't go as far as the last government had originally proposed. They pulled back on it. I imagine that will be looked at in the not too distant future, because we have to protect young minds from the material that's out there, much of which is legal. But if you're lost in your bedroom and you're grazing on a diet of, American school shooting materials, ISIS beheadings, extreme right-wing propaganda, and then you're finding there's material out there that give you tactics for use of knives and building explosives.
It's in this.
It's horrific.
It is horrific. This is ghastly.
And
this is chilling.
And that shouldn't be in kids' bedrooms, but it is.
So when the Prime Minister references this, and I imagine by its very nature, you've no idea how many people are engaged in this, have you got enough troops in your counter-terrorism team?
So we've got people looking at it. We get.
But if this is the new terrorism, you're going to need more resources.
So whether we label it terrorism or whether we do it a different way is something that this future review will look at. I think labels aren't the point. The point is, how do we successfully stop that ending up in the hands and the minds of young people?
Let me hand it to you now. I feel a little more comfortable giving that to you because it's an offence to even have it. Thank you. We move on to other questions.